Eternal Vigilance, Death That Tyranny Brings. Volume 2, by Robert E. Schubert. An oath transcends the mere amalgamation of words and sentences, embodying a solemn vow that interweaves honor and duty into the very soul of those who pledge it. It is not merely a declaration, but a sacred promise, woven with the threads of integrity and responsibility, symbolizing an unspoken bond between the protector and the protected. To those who bravely take it, the oath becomes a silent yet potent testament to their unyielding commitment and quiet sacrifices, oftentimes hidden in the shadows away from those they vow to shield. The protected may remain blissfully unaware of the depths of devotion and the magnitude of sacrifices borne by their guardians, yet the oath-taker steadfastly honors their pledge, anchoring it in a profound understanding of its inherent, boundless significance. Chapter 1. Death That Tyranny Brings. In the beginning. Deep within the bunker, the only sounds were the clacking of keyboards mixed with an occasional order from the leader overseeing the men's task. Looking up to the computer screen as he finished his fifth soft drink, the Supreme Leader sat nervously watching the images on the screen move into their final spots. A clock above marked the time until they were in place. 2 minutes. It was almost time to meet his fate. He'd experienced many failed projects in the past, so he now sat sweating on the red velvet furniture. Knowing that if it were not a total success, then he would lose it all, he looked over at the two men who occupied his personal space. Chi, he understood. Their two countries had many of the same goals for the United States, including total destruction, though he never quite believed that the American CIA agent accompanying Chi would seek the same thing, or bring him the means to accomplish his country's task. Chi and the American sat surveying the workings of the control room, both deep in thought as they watched the clock wind down. They didn't know if their mission would be a success, but they knew just how the next half hour would play out either way. As the clock clicked to 1 minute, the American leaned forward, revealing his face for the first time to the room, a room full of personals staring intently at the screens in front of them, though nobody dared look in his direction. He watched as the beeping ends of the lines connected with the desired marks on the screen. 2 of them were located a few hundred miles from the east and west coastlines, while a third made its way to the heartland, centering itself over Missouri. All activity deep within the bunker stopped, and the room grew quiet as the clock came to its last 10 seconds. With all eyes on the monitor, the stress to please the Supreme Leader was high. The timer ticked, 3, 2, 1, until all it displayed were zeros, as if its life had run out. The silence was broken as orders began to be shouted once again. "Do we have detonation?" the Supreme Leader asked, as he took another sip from a fresh drink, attempting to rehydrate as he continued to sweat more heavily. Within seconds, he had his answer brought not by a yes or a no, but rather by cheers breaking out all through the room. "See, I said you could count on my people." Shaking his head up and down, with his cheeks and chins flopping, he clapped his hands with short, chubby fingers much like a child would. Satisfied by the mission, the American stood, looking down at Chi. "I believe we have calls to make, don't you?" He wasn't really looking for a reply as he stepped fully into the light, nodding at the men who followed the Supreme Leader everywhere. Chi rose and followed the American from the tightly packed workspace, stopping at the other end of the corridor. The American reached down and removed the heels and part of the soles of each of his shoes. Cracking the heels open like eggs, he removed Play-Doh-like substances, combining them together until they were one. Next, he reached into his left breast pocket and removed a pen, and with one smooth, calm action, he drove it into the ball he had just formed. Chi watched as he put the items together, not saying a word or showing any expression. Chi knew exactly what the American was up to as he watched him place the item above the support beam overhead. Just then, they heard weapons fire erupt throughout the room they had left just moments ago. Looking down the corridor, they knew what had happened. "I really didn't think that group of followers had it in them," Chi said as he and the American began walking away from the area. Just before they made their first turn in the hallway, one of the former Supreme Leader's followers called out, "He died. You take us now?" Drawing a second pen from his inside right breast pocket, the American clicked the top as they walked around the corner, detonating the charge above the beam where the followers stood. Exiting the underground bunker, Chi could see that his men had completed their task from the dead that lay all around. Happy with their success, the two men walked side by side to board Chi's helicopter, which waited to take them both back to China. "We should work together more." Chi smiled at the American. A slight smile also played across the American's face. "After today, I believe there will be a lot of work to do." The two laughed as the chopper rose from the ground.